Alright, welcome to July-August of 1940 of my World in Flames playthrough. There'll be a link in the description below to where there's a timestamp in the previous video where I kind of talk about my thoughts between the two rounds. Alright, so I've put all the reinforcements out onto the board, and it's time to roll for initiative. I think both sides want the initiative pretty badly this turn. I think France wants it to reorganize as best as they can, and Germany wants to prevent that. So let's just roll, see what we get. Red is allies. Okay, red wins. Okay, yeah, I think the Axis really wants to go first, so I think they're going to ask for a reroll, which is going to push it over this way, which is not great for them, but they really would like to get the first turn here. But they don't get it. The Allies still roll higher with 6, Axis at 3, so it'll be Allies initiative. And weather is a 4. It's fair everywhere except for North Monsoon is rain. Alright, I'm doing Commonwealth and France in parallel here. Commonwealth is doing naval and France is doing land. And the Commonwealth has brought over some bombers over here just to try to disrupt the German line. And Germany has not really a whole lot in the way of planes that can intercept. It'll basically be this one here. It's going to intercept against this one because it's got the better bomber underneath there for the Commonwealth. So this air combat here gets through with no resistance. There's two bombers here, and it's one tank that they're ground striking. So I'll roll 2 dice for them, and if I get any 1 or 2, then that tank will flip over. And I get a 1 and a 2. That was very effective. So that flips over for Germany, and I'll return those planes to base in a minute here. And then the other one here, we've got an air combat. So it's the Commonwealth 5 versus the German 4. So Commonwealth is at +1. Germany will roll first. They get a 13. And 13 on -1 as nothing happens. Roll for the Commonwealth. You get an 11. 11 on +1 is DC. The defender clears through any one bomber. The defender is the player not dice rolling. So that's Germany. They don't have any bombers, so nothing happens. Go back to Germany. They roll a 7. That's DA. DA is defender aborts own front fighter or bomber. There's 1 fighter here. There's 1 bomber here. They're going to abort the fighter because they'll still get a chance to... they'll get a roll here just to see what happens. But if it doesn't go well for the Commonwealth after this, then they'll probably just abort the bomber as well. So this fighter will be aborted, but they'll still get to roll. So that's 15. 15 is AA. Attacker aborts defender's front fighter or bomber. So Commonwealth will abort the German fighter. So both fighters are aborted, and that only leaves the Commonwealth bomber left, so it will get cleared through. Alright, with only the 1 bomber left, it'll go ahead and roll. It needs a 3 or less to flip over that HQ there. Roll a 10, so nothing happens. Alright, so the end result of that is just that this unit flipped over here, but that's it, but nobody lost any planes. The Commonwealth did do a whole bunch of naval moves, just getting all of their cruisers out and defending their convoys around the world. They moved the troops that were in Nigeria, they moved them out into the Indian Ocean area to support the Pacific War. Okay, I've moved France around here, just setting up a defense here by Paris with the units that came out. I thought for a while about trying to attack either into this hex here or this hex here with a lot of these troops. And it's possible that I could take some of these units out, before they're able to attack back. But I'm just running into the same thing that I keep finding in some of these battles where, yes, it's possible to take them out, but it's also possible to lose a lot of troops in that attack, and it may really not be worth it. Germany is out of offensive points, and so anything that they try to do here will just have to be based on their basically unmodified combat values. So I think France is going to hold here without trying to be too aggressive in trying to attack Germany at the moment. Not sure if that's the right call or not, but just looking at the combat table, looking at this hex here, I could have gotten to about a +4 or 5 combat roll modifier for France, which certainly could have removed 1 or 2 of those units for Germany. It also could have removed many of the French units. And I think the biggest reason probably not to attack is at the end of the day, even if they were to take out a troop or two from that hex, they'd probably end face down afterwards, which would remove a lot of their tactical flexibility in being able to maneuver any survivors after the battles coming up with Germany. Okay, for the Soviet Union, they brought in this bomber here to try to do a ground strike against the one unit there in the capital. So here we go. That was off camera, but I rolled a 7. So nothing happens. This plane is going to return here, face down. Okay, so after land movement, move this Siberian unit down 1, move this unit down here, and I'm going to reorg using the HQ. I'm going to reorg the plane, and I'm going to reorg the infantry. And so they'll all be able to attack here next turn, except for the HQ. China didn't do much. They just moved this unit that was here down to here, and then moved this 7-3 in. So they're ready to defend. And as per the last few turns, the U.S. did not do anything this turn. Okay, Germany's doing a land action. They've moved some troops up and around, and they're going to attack into this hex here. Got some armor, got some mechanized, and if I'm doing my math correctly, the modifier here is plus 9.2. They're going to be doing a blitz. If I'm doing the math correctly, the modifier is plus 9.2, and they'll be doing a blitz. So here's for the fractional. Got a 9, so no. So plus 9. And it's an 8. So 17 on the blitz table. This is something I haven't actually had yet, is a retreat. So these two units here will retreat. They'll retreat to, I think, this location here. I'll flip them over. They'll need to flip over. And then half of the German units also need to flip over. Alright, I also did some aircraft rebasing here. Ultimately, it doesn't matter which land units get flipped over. I'm just going to use this HQ here to reorganize the 3 of them since it was a land action. So, just flip that HQ over, and everything over here has been reorganized. This HQ has a reorg of 3, so he could flip over 3 land units over here back to face up. So, all the land units that were engaged in that battle are back to being face up right now. Alright, so I think Italy's going to have a kind of interesting turn here. After looking at some of the mistakes I just made with France, I think Italy's going to capitalize on them. So the first thing Italy's going to do is move two bombers here to the port and try to do ground strikes. So we got a 3 and a 1. So there's 2 French units there. I should also mention I moved Italy's fleet out to the Western Mediterranean. So the top French unit, the red dice needs a 3 or less, and the green one needs a 1 or less for it to flip over. There we go. Nope, nothing for the first one. And then the same for the second one. Nope, so nothing happens there. I should mention, I don't know if I mentioned or not, but Italy's doing a combined action. So they get 3 land moves, and what they've done is they move 2 units here up into the mountains, and they move this motorized unit out to here, which is probably kind of ridiculous. But France left it open. There's a stored oil there. It's a motorized unit, so it doesn't have fully enough points to get there, so we'll have to flip over by the time it gets here, which does put it in a bit of a vulnerable location because it is not in supply at this point. And it is flipped over. But I don't know, so at worst here, worst case for Italy is that they've currently stolen an oil. It could get stolen back. But they've stolen a factory, which could get stolen back. So they've either stalled what France is doing here with these 2 units, moving them up towards Paris to defend Paris, and they're giving Germany some breathing room, or they've taken this factory, which was going to be almost impossible to take with a mountain unit sitting in it. So if Italy does well here in their combats against the factories, it may be of interest to the Axis to take France outright instead of declaring Vichy. We'll see. But we're going to do an attack here. These land units against this, plus all the shore bombardment. I've got 11 points of shore bombardment on 4 ships, and so the modifier is 6.2. So here's the roll for the fractional. Nope, it's 3. So plus 6 on the assault table. And I get an 11, so that goes to 17, which is 1 and 1. So not quite what Italy was hoping for. So France will take this one. Italy will take this militia, and Italy will have to flip over. Not quite what Italy was hoping for. That's a little disappointing for them. They were really hoping to take that port, especially with all those battleships there, but it is what it is. They were aggressive, and it may come back to not be great for them. The real downfall here for Italy is that they're probably not going to be able to take this factory this turn, and maybe not even this one. It was a long shot to take that, but the idea for Italy was to take this factory and this factory, and then be able to just conquer France outright, as the Axis conquer France outright. But they're probably not going to be able to take this factory this turn, and probably not this one either at this point. So at the end of the turn, it's likely that Vichy will happen instead. And Japan is doing a combined action. They're just doing some positioning. They've brought this bomber over from Japan on a rebase move. Hopefully help out in this hex here, maybe in a future turn. And then move some units up into these gaps that China left as they moved into the mountains to better defend. They've also loaded the militia that was in Tokyo onto a transport, and they are in the China Sea right now. Move into the Allied Impulse, and checking for weather. Seems right between a 1 and a 7. I'll re-roll that. 6. Alright, 6 is fair everywhere except North Monsoon, which has storms. Okay, so France moved around a few land units here, just to kind of surround here, and I think out of desperation they're going to attack this hex here with everything here. They're kind of hoping for a miracle at this point just to slow Germany down. They have a fighter off camera. They're actually going to fly combat air patrol to that hex, and Germany, who really does not want to lose anything in this particular hex, is going to fly some bombers for ground support and some escorting fighters as well. So first thing we'll do is fight this air combat. So I move the planes over here just to give them some more room. So France has a factor of 5 and Germany 5.5. 5 plus the 0.5 from this. So Germany will be they're at plus 0.5 and France is at minus 0.5. And the rounding in this game, that means Germany is at the plus 1 and France is at the 0 column of the table. The inactive side is Germany, so they will roll first. They get a 10, which is DC. Defender clears through any one bomber. There are no bombers on the defender side, so nothing happens. France gets an 18. That is DX, which is the defender destroys own front fighter or bomber. I think they're going to take the fighter. I think they're both going to stick with it at least one more round here. So back to Germany. Germany rolls a 7, and they're both on the 0 column now. That is DA. Defender aborts own front fighter or bomber. So the France will have to abort their fighter, but they will get to roll. Roll a 14. That's DA. Defender aborts own front fighter or bomber. So Germany will abort the fighter, who is going to abort anyway. So Germany will get their 2 bombers through, but they did lose a plane in that process. One thing to note also before going on, I ended up ignoring the Italian unit down in the factory down south. As France, it's annoying that happened for the losing that factory, but it's annoying. Whereas losing Paris is like that's it. So I decided to try to just move up and defend Paris and just ignore the Italian unit there. So that air combat did not go the way France was hoping. They were hoping to take out or abort at least one of those bombers. The combat modifier is 0.1, and it'll be on the assault table. Germany gets to choose. So this may go pretty poorly for France, but they are really hoping for a really good outcome here. So here's the fractional, 0.1, roll an 8, so nope, so it's just plus 0, it's whatever the dice roll is. It's a 17. Got a 9 and an 8. If I can, there you go. Got a 17. 17 is 1 and 1. That's about as fantastic as France could have hoped for. I think France will lose this unit. It's a better unit than the 4-3 sitting here, but I think the 4-3 is in a better spot. I should have put the 4-3 here and the 4-5 here. But I think they'll lose the 4-5 just because that is... I really need that 4 sitting there to defend. Germany will lose the 6-4. Now, all of French units do flip over, so on one, maybe that still wasn't worth it. But that does eliminate a little bit of that, at least attacking force. And if nothing else, kind of slows Germany down maybe, as they move into Spain. It's kind of a long-term play here. Seems like Paris is going to fall one way or another. Anything that they can do to remove units, I think, is fine. And they rolled really well, so that's good. Commonwealth is doing a naval action. I think they realized it's their time to probably get out of Belgium. They were here. They moved over here. They also moved the Nigerian territorial unit up into Suez, just to provide a bit more defense in Egypt. China and the U.S. are not doing anything this turn. I think they're both, I think China's in position where they want to be, and still trying to figure out what to do with the U.S. The Soviet Union is going to do an attack here in Iran, and moved in the planes for support, and all of this comes out to a combat factor, a modifier of +7 on the assault table. So here we go. Roll a 12. So that's 19. So that is 2 losses on both sides, and half the remaining attackers get to stay face up. So unfortunately that means one of the Siberian troops has to be lost. They're going to lose this one. This is gone. The planes will return, and this unit moves in. So, barring something unforeseen happening here, the Soviet Union will have conquered Iran here at the end of the turn. Moving on to Axis. Okay, Japan's going to start by doing ground strike missions. They've got a plane here and here. All right, we got 2 planes, 2 units. The planes are a 2 and a 1. So I'll just start with the 2 plane first. So for the top unit, nope. For the bottom unit, nope. And then for the 1 plane, the top, I actually rolled a 1. So the top unit is flipped over. And then, the bottom one I rolled a 2, close. But what that does mean, because I rolled the 1 with the 1 plane that has a tactical factor of 1, means the top unit is flipped over here for China. All right, so everybody here is attacking into this hex with the exception of the HQ here. I should mention I'm doing a land action. So this HQ is not attacking. He's going to stay face up to be able to reorganize if need be. This HQ here is doing HQ support. So all of that combined is a factor of 10.6, and that includes the face down unit here. A lot of these are attacking across rivers. That's the HQ support. So 10.6 here. Here's the fractional, get a 9, so nope. So +10. Well, 5. Japan does not want to take this particular hex here. That's 2 and 1. So Japan is going to lose this unit, and everybody else flips over. China is going to lose this unit. And then at the end of the turn here, Japan will flip. They're going to reorganize with this HQ. They're going to flip back over this one. Actually, Japan's going to keep this one and take the 5-4 instead. All right, so I lost the cavalry from here, the 5-4 from here, and then these 2 units and the 5-2 here are going to be flipped back over using the HQ reorg at the end of the turn from him. So he'll flip over, and then that means this HQ needs to flip over, and this flips over. So I went through that kind of fast, but basically everybody here flipped over because of the combat results. It was 2 and 1, and everybody flips over. But the 1 unit that did not attack was this HQ here. So with his reorg value of 3, and it was a land action, he's flipping back over 3 units, which were the 2 here and the 5-2 here in this hex. The 2 units I chose to lose were the cavalry here and the 5-4 infantry here in this location, and China lost their 3-3 infantry. It's incredible how difficult this hex has been to try to take. This hex here has been weakened, but because it's in a mountain and across a river from all of these units, the combat odds here are still roughly 1-1. I don't think... I'll have to look at it on the Allies' turn. I don't think China's going to want to attack here, even if they have a slight advantage. A poor roll there would be really devastating for them, just to try to take out one of those units there. And one of those units have really been pretty ineffective at trying to take this city here. I know it's partially because every time it seems like I roll for this battle here, it's a pretty low roll, but there's a lot of rivers around here that are really protecting that city. All right, Germany has moved around here, and these hexes here are going to be attacking here. They're going to try to close in on Paris. There's a lot of offensive capability here. It's a blitz, so all of these armors get +1. I've got 2 face-down units here. All of this together is plus 15.8. I roll a 7 for the fractional, so it's plus 16. Go to 15, so that's off the chart. So both of these units are destroyed, and all German units stay face up. And here's what this looks like after that was done. And for Italy, they're going to send 2 planes here to this city just to see if they can flip any units over. They both have a tactical value of 1, so it's unlikely, but they're just going to see if they can do anything, and then make their land movement choices after that. So for the top unit, any 1 will flip it. Nope. And for the bottom unit, nope. So Italy's just going to move like this. They're going to move around the city. I think their idea right now is to try to get into what will eventually be German-occupied France before they create Vichy, so that they don't have to go back to the production circle. They can hang out in France and then move their way down to Spain. I think everybody's in supply here. We've got... I'm going to jump over to this railroad here and back to this HQ, and that puts these units here in supply. And this unit here should be getting supply from this HQ. It's all through Italian controlled, and this is in French zone of control here. Let me move the camera so that's more obvious. He should be getting supply from here, this HQ, and back up through this train. It's 3 spaces away through Italian-controlled territory, and anywhere there's a French zone of control, there's an Italian unit there as well. So I think I'm doing that correctly. So that's it for the Axis. Moving on to the Allied impulse. Rolling for weather. Fair weather everywhere. And I think every Allied country is going to pass in the hopes that the turn ends. I don't think any of them have anything they really want to do. If they all pass, we'll subtract 2 from the dice roll, which will mean a 1 would end the turn. Ooh, close. 2. So it'll be Axis Impulse next. Okay, so at the beginning of the Axis Impulse, Germany is going to declare war on Denmark. Roll for U.S. entry check. 8, so nothing happens. Denmark will align with Commonwealth, and unless I'm missing anything in the bags I've got here, the only Danish troop that I see is a reserve, so it doesn't come on yet this turn. There are some boats. I'm going to put them up in not Copenhagen, but one of the other ports. So Germany is going to do a combined action. They're going to move their Atlantic fleet into the Baltic Sea area. And I'll show that area once we get to the action over in Denmark. Next up are land moves. So if I'm doing this correctly, I think what I can do, right now these units are in supply. They're getting supply out this way into the rail lines out into Germany. So they're in supply at the moment. I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess it didn't really matter. So right now, let me get some markers to denote that. So I believe they're still in supply. I think this HQ can trace a rail path back through here, jump across to this rail, and then back into Germany. Let me know if I'm doing that wrong, but I think they're still in supply because they control these hexes here now. Alright, I did move 1 more unit over here. Just moved up a little bit. Alright, next up are paradrops. I've not done this before, so learning experience. I do have a transport plane here and a paradrop unit here. So the plane's going to fly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to Copenhagen with the paratrooper, and then he will return. And actually, I think he'll return to Kiel. So this area is a bit of a mess. All of these are in Kiel right now. Okay, I think that's it for the paradrop at the moment, and then he'll have a combat here a little bit later. All right, so I'll start with the combat here with the paradrop. So I've got the paratrooper here. I'm going to fly this plane here to do ground support. I've got naval bombardment, shore bombardment with the battleship out in the Baltic Sea. I've got the Bismarck out there. So the total combat factor for Germany here is 4 for the paratrooper, 1 from this plane, and then 3 from the shore bombardment. So that's 8. The notional unit there is at 1 because its base strength is 1. It's +1 for being in a city, but -1 for being surprised, so 1. So the combat odds are 8 to 1. And then add 2 to the modifier, 1 for the paradropper, and 1 for the flipped notional unit. I think I'm doing that right. So it's at +18 for this combat. Okay, so +18 on 6 is off the chart. All right, that should be it for that combat. So the paradropper ended up taking Copenhagen. All right, 2 more combats. We've got these 3 hexes attacking here, and this hex attacking here. So let's do Paris first. I've got quite a few units here attacking, and then the plane is adding its support as well. So overall, it's a combat strength of 46 for Germany to 11 for France. There are 3 printed factory tiles here, but there's also 2 flipped over units, so that adds 1 to the roll. So it's 9.3 for this battle. As for the fractional, 10, nope, so just +9. It's a 12. 12 plus 9 is 21. So one of the French units is destroyed. I'll take the militia. The other one is shattered. It could retreat, so it'll go on the reinforcement circle. And these units will move into Paris. Half of the remaining attacking land units stay face up. This one, basically just going to flip over these slower ones. So I flipped over 1 in each stack here. Okay, and then lastly here, Germany's got 14. France has 3. I'm using HQ support, so that's +2. The flipped over unit here is another +2, but there's a factory, so that's -1. So it's a total of +3 on top of the 14 to 3 odds, which is 12.3 total combat roll modifier. So the fractional is 5. Nope. So +12. Roll at 10. 10 plus 12 is 22, which does actually mean that I lose a unit because I'm attacking a city, so I'm going to lose the tank. The French unit is also destroyed, and the HQ will move in here. Alright, so I went through that a little quickly, but basically Germany ended up taking this factory here, took Paris, and also took Denmark as well. So pretty successful turn for Germany. They will be able to declare Vichy at the end of the turn if they want to. There really aren't that many factories left in France, only 3 down in southern France. If they are interested in trying to hold out and just take France outright. But we'll have to see how the rest of the turn goes for that. Okay, I think Italy knows that they're not going to be capturing this city or this one here this turn, so I think their goal is basically to get into the part that isn't going to turn into Vichy France with as many units as they can, so they don't have to go to the production circle to come out in a turn or 2 afterwards. That way they're ready to go and move towards Spain right away. So that's what they're doing here. They've just moved sort of north into the southern part of what will be occupied France. I think I did all this correctly with supply. This one moved first to connect up to the German-controlled territory. They're using the... it's a little bit off map, but there's an HQ up in Belgium that's a secondary supply source that cooperates with Italy, and it's coming down here to this Italian HQ, and all of these are in supply via this HQ here up through the train track. Anywhere the supply might go through zone of control, there's another unit here, so the supply can go through that unit. So I think I've done all that correct. I think everybody here is in supply except for him over here. So that's it for Italy. They didn't do any attacks. They're just trying to get into the part of France that won't turn into Vichy. Alright, I think Japan's going to do a combined action. They're going to move this transport. It's got a militia in it. They're going to move it over to Shanghai. The transport will flip over, and the unit will debark face up. I'm going to try to do a ground strike mission here, just to see if they can flip any of those units over, and then that'll kind of determine what they do in the combat stage. So the green dice will be the one on the top. There's 2 defending units there. I need a 1 for either of them. Nope, and no 1s were rolled. So nothing happens there. Land movement, the unit that got off the boat in Shanghai is going to just move over 1 to the west. Alright, and I think I'm going to do a land combat. I think this hex and this hex are going to attack here. My thinking here is that for Japan, 3 of these 4 units are militia, which are very cheap and quick to build. So if they were to be lost, they could easily be replaced. There's only about it's less than 12% chance that I lose more than 2 units as Japan. And there's at least about a 15% chance that both of these units could be destroyed. So I think Japan is willing to take that risk. The most probable worst case is that Japan loses 2 of these units and they're just forced to stall on this front. But if they could break through into this factory, that would be, while the weather is good, I think that would be good for them. If they flip over, they flip over. The weather down here is usually pretty bad this time of year anyway, so I think they're just going to go for it. There's no river. It's 2 units here with a combat strength of 8. Japan's got a combat strength of 18. There's a factory in the defending hex, so if I'm doing my math right, this should be plus 3.5 on the combat modifier, since it's 2.25 to 1 odds, and there's a minus 1 modifier for the factory. So 3.5, here's for the fractional, got a 2, so it will go to plus 4, and here we go. Alright, rolled a 9. So 9 plus 4 is 13, nothing happens. So it's really not too bad of a case for Japan. I think Japan was hoping for, Japan was hoping for a bigger dice roll there, but they don't lose anything, and it's not like these units are probably going to do much for the rest of the turn anyway. And then China's happy because they have both their units ready to go there. And I think that'll do it for Japan. Moving now to the Allies. Roll for weather. Got a 4. Was a 4. So rain in the North Monsoon, nothing else. I think all of the Allies are going to pass again. France doesn't really have anything left. The Commonwealth has set up everything they want to do navally out in the world. The Soviet Union is done in Iran, and I mean they could always do some more rearrangement along the front line with Germany, or the potential front line with Germany, but I think they're okay at the moment. I haven't done much with the US yet, and China doesn't really have anywhere to move, so I think they're all going to pass again and just hope the turn ends. So normally they'd need a 1, but because everybody's passing, they'd need a 3 or less to end the turn. They roll a 1. That is the end of the turn. Okay, because the Allies had the first and last impulses, this moves over to the Axis side. Partisan roll. 6. Greece, UK, Finland, Iraq, Afghanistan, Canada, South America, Japan, and Malaya. Alright, so the only one of those that's currently affected is Malaya. So here's the roll for that. 10, so that's greater than the 2 there, so there's no partisans. Entry markers have been placed on the board, and I've got I added 1 token to the US entry pool for Germany, Italy, and I'm keeping dice here just to keep track of the actual value, since it's 1.5 times the value in its pool plus half the value in the other pool. So right now the entry pool for against Germany and Italy is 19, and against Japan is 16, and then the tension pools are 13 and 14. I don't think I'm going to choose any US entry options right now. I think they want to try to build up both of those pools for some of the higher point options here. And also should be getting a few entry tokens here once France is conquered a little bit later in the turn. Alright, so here's what the Allies bought with their build points. China's building some infantry. US is finishing some battleships from their construction pool and building a carrier plane. Commonwealth here is building their HQ, building a mechanized unit, randomly pulled the one that comes out in India, and then another fighter plane. Soviet Union's building 2 subs that were in their construction pool garrison, built 1 infantry, and just randomly happened to pick the 1 Siberian unit out of like, I don't know, 10, 15 different infantry units. So pretty lucky. That's a good unit. And then building a bomber plane. And France probably doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to go step by step here. They have 6 build points just from losses that happened in their country, in the home country, this last turn. So they're building some quick and cheap units to come out just in case they still happen to be around after the end of the turn here. And for the Axis, they're doing a lot of shipbuilding this turn, a lot of ships being built out of the construction pool. Germany's got 5 submarines coming out of the construction pool, building a marine unit. They may have need of that sooner than later. And then they're going to start trying to replenish some of their offensive points that they spent against France. Japan building some ships, 2 battleships and 2 amphibious transports out of their construction pool, and Italy also building a battleship and an amphibious transport out of their construction pool. So a lot of naval units that should be out in just a few turns for the Axis. Okay, moving on to the peace step. So a few different countries here will have some action. So first up is the Soviet Union with Iran. So the Soviet Union has completely conquered Iran. Soviet Union now controls all of the hexes in the country. And there are these 3 oils down here. But interestingly, this one here is not connected by rail. So I think the only way they're going to be able to use this hex is if there are ships out here in the Persian Gulf transporting them. So right now I think it's just going to be the 1 oil for Soviet Union. Next is Denmark, which has been incompletely conquered by Germany. Incompletely because they still control Iceland and Greenland. Though, well, Greenland's a territory, but Iceland is a minor country, which would prevent them from being completely conquered. They've chosen the United Kingdom as their new home country. And these ships here are treated as if they've been overrun. So we've got 3 convoys, another 3 convoys, and 2 other ships. So we'll just roll for each of them. On a 5 or higher, they remain controlled by the Allies. So we'll start with the first one over there. Roll a 4, just off camera, so that's destroyed. The next ship is an 8, so that's kept by the Allies, so just move that up. The next 3 convoy points is a 2, so they're destroyed. I think I'm doing this correctly with the convoy points, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're treated the same here as part of the overrun. And then the last one is a 1, which actually gets converted over to German convoy points in the repair pool. And with that, Denmark has been conquered. Okay, and the last thing, I think Germany is going to go ahead and create Vichy France. So I'm going to step through these rules just step by step. I've read the rules for Vichy France multiple times. I find them to be some of the more challenging ones to understand. There's just a lot going on with units and countries, and I'm sure if I played this a few more times, it would be a little bit easier, but I'm not entirely confident I'm going to get this entire thing correct, so feel free to correct me if I'm doing something wrong here. But just looking at 17.1 in the rulebook, any Axis major power may choose to install a Vichy government during any peace step if it occupies Paris, not at war with the U.S., and France is not conquered. So French home country is divided into 2 countries. So France here, occupied France in the north, and Vichy France in the south. Occupied France, it's basically a conquered major power home country. It's controlled by the Axis major power that installed it. So Germany is conquering France. So basically, they're going to have control of every hex here in France. Technically, they do not control the ones that Italy has already claimed here, or where the French or the Italian units are, or the ones in the Italian zone of control. My thinking is to just almost kind of ignore that, just to simplify bookkeeping. I don't think that'll matter. I suppose it could matter much later in the game if and when Italy is conquered by the Allies later on. That could matter. Yeah, so I'm just going to say Germany controls these hexes here. I know that that's not per the rules, but I just think for the sake of me trying to keep all of this straight, it's just going to be easier if I just say that all of occupied France here is German. So we'll see if that has ramifications later on down the road, but I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say that even though these are Italian controlled and should remain Italian controlled, I'm just going to say all of occupied France here is German controlled, and it just is what it is. I think it'll be easier going forward, and I don't think it'll matter too much ultimately. Okay, so now we need to determine control of the other French, the minor countries around the world. So there are French carriers and or battleships that are not in a French home country port. So basically what we do is go through each grouping of French minor countries and roll a die, and if it is greater than or equal to a certain number, then it becomes controlled by Free France. Otherwise, it gets controlled by Vichy France. So because they have a French carrier or battleship that is not currently in the French home country, the dice roll will have 2 subtracted to it, which means some of these countries are just automatically aligned to Vichy France. So that'd be Corsica, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, French West Africa, Syria, and Indochina. So other countries that need to be rolled for, I will go through those. So Madagascar on a 10 remains Free French. Roll 3. All Asian map minor countries and territories need a 9 or better. This is with the modifier. Nope. French Equatorial Africa needs a 5 or higher. 8. So French Equatorial Africa is Free French. All Pacific map minor countries and territories need a 4 or better. 9. Yep, so they're Free French. And then Marquesas Island and French Polynesia need a 9 or better. Roll a 7. No. So French Equatorial Africa and all Pacific map minor countries and territories are Free French, and everything else is Vichy. Alright, so any Axis-controlled hexes in Vichy-controlled minor countries go to Vichy control, so that's nothing. I don't think there are any such hexes like that. Free France is going to choose Cameroon as its new home country. Okay, so moving on to units. Every non-French controlled unit in a Vichy-controlled hex is put on the production circle to arrive as a reinforcement in 2 turns. So that is all of these Italian troops down here in what is now Vichy France. Alright, it says that any remaining French-controlled land unit in a hex that France does not control is placed anywhere on the production circle. So I think that applies to French units that were still in what is now occupied France. Earlier in the rules it says control of occupied France is per 1371, and 1371 goes into what to do with the units that are in a conquered country, but the statement just says control of occupied France is as per that step. So I don't think the units are destroyed. I think they get put to the production circle, but I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Alright, next it says the major power controlling Vichy now places all remaining French-controlled non-naval units on the production circle to any hex in their home country in which they can stack. The way I read that is every French unit currently on the production circle, even those I just built this turn, need to come out into Vichy France. Alright, I've also moved every French naval unit at sea to a port controlled by France. I have removed from the game all French-controlled militia whose city is not controlled by Vichy. Half the remaining French-controlled militia and reserve units on the map were destroyed, and the rest are placed in the reserve pool. And then I need to randomly remove half the units now in each French force pool. And I'm assuming half of 1 is equal to half, which rounds up to 1, so if a force pool only has 1 unit in it, it will be removed. Alright, I think I've done all of that correctly. I hope so. Like I said, some of those steps, there's a lot going on there with units. There's a lot of situational cases there, so I'm hoping I did all those correct. Let me know if there's something that looks like I did blatantly wrong. If so, I apologize, but I think at this point I'm going to move forward. Vichy France has some units here. They're going to be dissolved at like the beginning of the next turn anyway, so it kind of doesn't matter. but just wanted to try to do those rules as best as I could. Hopefully I got most of that right. So with that, that is the end of the turn. Germany conquered France. Vichy France currently exists. Germany also conquered Denmark. The Soviet Union conquered Iran. And that's basically where we're at. You know what? I just remembered I do need to do some entry checks for the US. So for the Axis conquering or Vichying France in this situation, it's 18 on the US entry option check. So they'll add one token automatically and then another one on 1 through an 8. Get a 2, so 2 tokens, I'll go do that. Yeah, so I think Germany's plan, along with Italy moving forward, is to head towards Spain. I think that's going to be their next objective. And then I think Germany is going to, after Spain, or maybe concurrently with it, I think they're going to take a look at maybe heading towards Norway. And then once those two are done, I think they might turn their eyes across the North Sea over to the United Kingdom, and maybe attempt to do Sea Lion. I don't know if they have the naval power to really make that happen. They are building some submarines. They're building transports. They've got paradrop units, but I don't know if that'll be enough or not. But that's not going to be anytime soon. I think Spain and Norway are the next two objectives for Germany. Italy is also going to be working in Spain as well. Really, they want to take as much as they can in terms of factories and resources. And then from there, maybe concurrently also, but Italy is going to start looking again at northern Africa. And over here, Japan is really not making much progress at all at this point. Depending on the weather, I think they still want to try to take that one hex that's surrounded on 4 sides. That may be about as far as they are going to be getting, though. Another hex that they would like to try to take is this one right here with the factory on the Burma Road. They are going to end up getting French Indochina from Vichy before Vichy is dissolved, so that'll be something that they get. So we'll see. I'm not sure. It kind of depends on weather as to what Japan's going to do next turn. It will be September, October, so the weather can start turning in the northern temperate region. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to starting the September, October turn soon. One thing of note, the dice rolling, it's been very difficult to actually get it on camera, so I'm going to try something a little different starting next video. I'm going to try to roll the dice in a box or something and film that separately. I'm going to try to do that, no guarantees, but I know that a lot of the dice rolling, especially this episode, has been off camera. The area in which I have to actually roll the dice to keep it on camera is deceivingly small, so I'm going to see if I can do something about that moving forward. So again, thanks for watching.